Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2012, I remember my college graduation 25 years ago. My big concern wasn't what I was going to do with my life. It was how to get my stereo with the amplifier, turntable, 80-pound speakers, my milk crates full of LPs, and all those boxes of books down the stairs from my fourth-floor walk-up apartment into my car, and then back up several flights of stairs into a summer sublet in Washington, D.C. I had to cut off my phone service, get my roommates to look at the last bill, and circle all the calls they owed me, write me checks for a few dollars, and then I had to go stand in line at the bank to deposit the checks. Then I had to get a different phone company to install a line in my new apartment. So a quarter century isn't such a long span of time, but that was a different world in terms of media and technology. In the late Gutenberg era, we got our news from newspapers and the nightly news at 6:30. We did research in an ancestor of the World Wide Web known as the library. We wrote papers on electric typewriters and corrected them with a product called liquid paper. I used to spend a lot of time making cassette mixtapes, and that was an important form of flirting in the days before Facebook. There wasn't any texting back then. You actually had to play the music while you were copying it. You're all laughing. You know, I think if you forced college students to live with the technology we had back then, you'd have a good premise for a reality TV show. You could call it 80s Dorm. So you, on the other hand, are the internet's first native-born generation. You live digitally integrated lives that really aren't possible for those of us who come from the analog era. I've always liked the remark by the science fiction writer William Gibson. He's the guy who coined the term cyberspace. The future's already here, Gibson once said. It's just unevenly distributed. Unevenly distributed in favor of the young, he might have added. I was an early immigrant to the digital world, but I still speak with an accent. I got the hang of it to some extent only because I was involved in the launch of Slate, one of the first internet magazines, back in 1996. And I'd like to claim I was an early visionary about the web, but really I just got lucky. My main luck was having a mentor named Michael Kinsley, the founder of Slate, and that's where I'm still working 15 years later. Michael Kinsley was a visionary because he questioned everything that journalists did, from the idea that quotations in stories were good, to the premise that you should interview somebody you were writing about, to the assumption that a magazine had to be, well, a magazine. In truth, though, being a web pioneer in those days was a lot less radical than it sounds. Back then, Slate wasn't very webby, as we used to say. It was updated once a week, and it had page numbers. We thought people were going to read it from beginning to end the way that you would read Sports Illustrated or The Economist in print. We were at Microsoft in those days when we launched, and I remember Bill Gates giving a pep talk to us and telling us he hated reading things on a computer. And from then on, we made a printout every week and sent it over to his office. But with a new medium, you follow it where it leads, which is how Slate came early to such now familiar innovations as the blog, aggregation, slideshows, and user commenting. I remember when Princess Diana died over a weekend, and we realized we were in a 24/7 business, like it or not. Anytime there was news, we had to have something to say about it fast. Our biggest discovery, I think, in a way, was the new relationship with readers. On the web, they responded immediately, and often not very nicely, to anything you wrote. And this is probably obvious to you, but it was revolutionary to us back then. And by transforming our connection with our audience, the web changed the tone in which we wrote. It freed us up to be looser and more personal. Out went the formal diction and inverted pyramid style of the old-fashioned newspaper story, and in came the first-person singular. The opportunity created by digital media is what I think makes this the best time ever to be a journalist, even though it's probably the worst time ever to be a newspaper. It explains why journalism schools are reporting record applications, even though the news business is clearly in crisis. Suddenly, all of these barriers we'd lived with came down at one time. And one of the barriers the web broke down is between the producers and the consumers of news, between the news person and the citizen. In the age of social media, we're all journalists a little bit. With Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and Instagram and YouTube, you all do what journalists do. You let an audience know what you think is relevant. In this new world of social sharing, you're sending out little signals all day telling people, I care about this, finding out what they care about, even if all you're doing is hitting the like button. And in this way, you participate vicariously in other people's struggles for rights and recognition, and you experience them, however fleetingly, as your own. You can hold governments, leaders, and organizations accountable. You participate in spontaneous forms of activism and protest. And I think this graduating class understands what I'm talking about as well as anyone. You've arrived at this day with the help of new digital technologies. Many of you completed your degrees completely online and are watching this on webcast. Some of you did so from war zones halfway around the world. And most of you, I think, had at least some online coursework. You all benefited from online research resources that exceed what Harvard or Yale students would have had access to a decade ago. And I know that one member of your class, who's blind, completed his degree with the help of new adaptive technologies. All of this was just unthinkable 20 years ago. So, as people who've grown up with digital technology, people for whom the future has already arrived, I think you have a huge opportunity in front of you. But that opportunity brings with it a big responsibility, too. It's going to be up to all of you who are maturing with this technology to make sure that the most powerful communications tools that the world has ever known serve democratic and humane principles and not just corporate and economic imperatives. There's some people who think that the internet brings freedom automatically. I have huge admiration for some of the people who express that idea, like the Chinese dissident artist and blogger Ai Weiwei, who recently wrote, "The internet is uncontrollable, and if the internet is uncontrollable, freedom will win. It's as simple as that." Using Twitter as a kind of human rights soapbox, Ai Weiwei has been a tremendous force in China. I'm sure you've all been following the drama of the blind lawyer Chen Guangcheng, who eluded his captors in a daring midnight escape from the remote village where he was being held. I loved Ai Weiwei's quote about Chen's escape. He said, "You know he's blind, so the night to him is nothing." The night to him is nothing. What a powerful metaphor that is for the courage of a blind peasant who teaches himself the law and becomes a champion of the rights of women. But much as I'd like to believe in that kind of technological determinism that says freedom has to win in the end, I'm afraid I don't. Digital technology can just as easily be used as a tool of surveillance and repression. Twitter and Facebook and Google are all blocked in China, except for members of a small elite that knows how to get around that censorship. The Chinese government brings tremendous resources to bear on keeping social media tools from translating into public protest. But I also don't agree with those who are betting on Big Brother. Technology is ethically neutral. There's no historical inevitability about whether it does more to help the sightless dissident or the secret policeman. This is going to come down to the policies of our government, of our technology companies, what you demand from them, and how you assert your own digital rights. It's the morality that you bring to technology that matters. Sometimes seems to me that the ideological disagreements between Republicans and Democrats pale in significance compared to the difference in worldview between Apple and Google, or between Facebook and Twitter, the conflict between closed and open systems, between walled gardens and the open internet. And these corporate philosophies have big implications for all of us. Is Facebook going to continue to insist on the use of real names, which limits anonymous protests against repressive governments? Are we comfortable with Google being the new Library of Congress? Will hosting services like Amazon again respond to pressure to take down something that embarrasses the government, like WikiLeaks, without a legal order? Should American technology companies promote democratic values abroad, or should they yield to local standards as a price of entry into those markets? What kind of social responsibility are we going to demand from the companies that we've given so much power over our lives and our political conversation? It's your generation, yours, that has to bring us back to these fundamental questions. You're going to be the ones who determine whether these new digital tools, the ones you've all grown up with, benefit humanity or not. Now that may sound like a tall order on a day when you're rightfully celebrating, and it doesn't produce a very clear set of instructions, I realize. You're probably wondering, what's this guy asking me to do? Is he asking me to read the terms of service agreement before I click agree? Don't worry, even I don't do that. But what you can do, I think, is think of yourself as more than a consumer in relation to technology. Think of yourself as a citizen with rights and responsibilities. Demand the technology companies live up to their moral claims. Require that they respect your privacy and the rights of others around the globe. My generation was the first to glimpse the digital world, but it belongs to yours, and it's up to you to make it work for all of us. Thank you.